All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to talk about Port Arthur tonight. We recently did a show with Sam Newman and a guy named Paul Motor, who's an independent filmmaker who I've known over the years. And we're going to talk about the controversial topic of Port Arthur. Stick around and listen. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to talk about Port Arthur tonight. We did an interesting show with Sam Newman on the You Can't Be Serious podcast, where we discussed with Paul Motor, independent filmmaker and a guy who's made documentaries on the subject of Port Arthur called the WASP Files, and he wants to make a film, like a live-action film, based on his theories. Now, he believes that there was something more going on with Port Arthur than what we've been told. What the official story is that, there was this kind of lone nutcase who, inherited some money, got into guns and shot up Port Arthur. Now, there are some people that think it's distasteful to even, question this event because of the victims, and it might cause suffering to the families and stuff. But look, certainly, it's certainly nothing like Sandy Hook. No one's saying that the event didn't happen. Everyone knows that people suffered terribly, and it was a terrible tragedy down there in Tasmania. But, I think that there are enough anomalies that, it's worth talking about, and on the Sam Newman show, Paul Motor brings up a lot of points. After I recorded that, a friend of mine, David Thrussell, sent me a whole pile of documents on it and some interesting, videos online. So there is, if you look around the internet, if you do a deep dive, there's a lot of interesting stuff you can find. And it does appear like something strange was going on, that maybe, Martin Bryant was like somehow convinced to take part in some kind of shootout at the first house, I can't remember the name of it, the Seaside Motel or Seaside House, whatever it's called something like that. But the actual shooting at Port Arthur was possibly carried out by some kind of intelligence person wearing a blonde wig. Because of the accuracy of the shots. Some of the close range stuff maybe anybody could have done, but he was taking out people at 200-300 yards, headshots. This is something that, the majority of police officers certainly couldn't do, that maybe, the greatest marksmen who ever been to the Middle East, maybe they could pull this off. But, it seems unlikely that unless Martin Bryant was some kind of idiot savant when it comes to shooting. Now, there's a great video with Chopper Reed online where he speaks about meeting Martin Bryant in a Tasmanian jail, and he makes the same observation, that he thought it just seems very strange that this guy, who's not tough, that he was a mentally, well, he calls him a retard, but he would call him mentally, he had an IQ of 66, ladies and gentlemen. He's not an Einstein. How could he pull off the greatest shooting with incredible marksmanship? He suggested they, do some kind of test where they can, see if he is some, idiot savant, but he suspected something else was going on, because we all remember after this event, Australia brought in nationwide gun laws, which was something that, had been difficult to do. I think some of the other states, some had agreed to gun laws, but a lot of some major states certainly weren't interested in getting involved in national gun laws. But after this event, so there is a political motivation there. And, there's a lot of other strange things that, he inherited a lot of money from Tattersalls because he dated the woman from Tattersalls. There is a film called Nitram that's worth investigating. It makes out that he was the killer, but it shows the events that led up to the Port Arthur incident, and it makes him out to be sort of this dangerous white male lunatic. I'm not saying he wasn't. I think he was a disturbed individual. He may have been involved in killing the woman he was living with, who was the Tattersalls heir, because one of the things he used to do due to his mental illness was he would grab the wheel when you're out driving, and maybe you're driving 80, he'll grab the wheel. I don't know if we all know what would happen there. If you're driving at 80 or 100 and someone grabs the wheel, you could easily slam into a post and kill yourself and the passenger. So he survived the crash, but his partner didn't, or his lady friend didn't. So, there's a lot of weird stuff going on, and, I applaud Paul Motor for speaking out about it. He's been working on this project for about 8 years, so he's quite knowledgeable about it. And also my friend David Thrussell has a lot of information about it that he's told me, and he's shared some links which I've got to continue to look into. But also want to applaud Sam Newman for just having the guts to just, even bring up the topic, because, he got attacked the way he got attacked when he interviewed, Blair Cottrell and Thomas Sewell in the press this week. I think Sam's heading in an interesting direction. He's becoming like an Australian Joe Rogan, and I think that's a great thing. I think think people want to hear these conversations. Certainly Sam doesn't agree with everybody he interviews. He doesn't agree with most of them, but he's happy to have that conversation. And he doesn't believe in deplatforming people. So he doesn't believe just because you have a certain opinion, you shouldn't be spoken to. And I think that's a great thing. And that's one of the reasons, I definitely salute Sam, and also why I enjoy appearing on the show when I do. So that's the report from Tiger Mountain this week. Just look into it, and I don't know. I mean, I'm not completely sold on it myself. It's possible that the official story is the official story, but there's a lot of stuff that's, they've put like a gag order on it for practically 100 years. I mean, that's suspicious in itself. So, just keep an open mind, make up your own mind, and let's get the files released now, the way Donald Trump has released the files to JFK, and at least maybe a couple of files from Epstein with everybody's name redacted. At least we could get that. All right, that's the report for Tiger Mountain this week. Thanks.